Creating an open-world crime game is a rather risky venture. Even if your game is good, if it doesn't do enough that is original, it'll get labeled as a GTA clone and almost completely ignored. But after the success of Grand Theft Auto 3, a lot of developers still tried, and the PS2, Xbox, GameCube era of gaming saw a ton of games that figured they could cash in on the open-world hype. One publisher in particular, Activision, even made a surprisingly successful series out of it, True Crime. But with the arrival of the new consoles, the open-world crime hype faded into the background, and eventually the True Crime Hong Kong game that was under development at Activision was pawned off to Square Enix, resulting in the game we're looking at today, Sleeping Dogs. Now, I don't know how well Sleeping Dogs pulls off the Hong Kong environment. I've never been. But what I do know is that, to an outsider, the environment feels perfect. It feels like a lived-in city, down to the little tiny details. The Hong Kong of Sleeping Dogs feels lived in, unlike so many other open-world games, with large numbers of civilians lining the street and a good number of cars driving along them. However, while I like my open worlds to feel lived in and as real as possible, I'm actually not much for open world shenanigans. So for me, the most surprising aspect of Sleeping Dogs is that it doesn't rely on the open world fun as a crutch for its weaknesses elsewhere. It actually has an extremely strong storyline and highly polished combat systems, some of the best of either I've ever seen in an open world crime game. Like the old true crime games that actually bear the name of the franchise, you play an undercover cop in Sleeping Dogs, one that struggles to walk the line between cop and criminal. It's admittedly a pretty tired tale, but the characterization and setting refresh that old standby just enough to make it intriguing to the point to encourage me to mainline the story at times. I actually cared about seeing what was going to come next. And thankfully, the gameplay keeps you engaged as well. The melee combat is very similar to Batman in that it's very brutal, very in your face. And I like that, but the problem is that the melee combat is so good that when the game finally introduces you to gunplay, it pales in comparison. It isn't terrible, but it certainly isn't as good as other games like Grand Theft Auto that focus almost entirely on their gunplay, which makes you wonder why they didn't just focus entirely on melee. Thankfully, while guns take a bigger and bigger role as the story goes on, there's still enough hand-to-hand to keep the gameplay interesting enough, even all the way through the end of the game. The biggest problem, however, that this game faces is its own camera, which often sways wildly when you turn a corner, whether it's in a car or on foot, as well as becoming extremely confused if you're engaging a large number of people in a small space. It's frustrating to be sure, and it led to a few deaths and mission failures for me, but I wouldn't consider it particularly game-breaking, because while it was infuriating every once in a while, more often than not, it was simply a nuisance. Now, this game did come out on the 360 and PS3, and all the footage here comes from 360, and the reason I'm covering it right now is because late last year it was released for current-gen consoles, with much better graphics and effects. Still, I used 360 footage to show that no matter where you play this game, it is absolutely worth playing if you've never given it a shot. While the game got some attention when it first came out, I feel like that attention has faded away, especially with the release of Grand Theft Auto 5 on pretty much every platform on the planet. And as a result, you can get Sleeping Dogs pretty cheap, even on PS4 and Xbox One. Every Friday, I look at a game that was ignored when it came out, or like in the case of Sleeping Dogs, has been forgotten since. I look at games that people have missed for some reason or another. If you like that idea, be sure to subscribe so you can see the latest videos I do every week. If you like this video in particular, be sure to hit that like button, and thanks for watching.